to do a special Sunday night, and we traced ourselves from last Sunday back from Constantine, and we go into the Dark Ages, and that's basically where we are today. We're looking at the origins of our Christian, quote-unquote, faith as we know it, not the origin as it comes out of the Bible, but as people got their hands on it, and the faith began to become structured in Europe. And we're just looking at that and studying that as we go along, try to find out how did things come to be the way they were. And we come in here, and of course in the New Age, our pathway is a different pathway. Our pathway is a pathway to truth. And of course, finally understanding truth leads us to freedom. And it's not truth that you can understand by somebody telling you this is the truth, because if you don't believe it, it's not true. It has to be felt and explode from within you like a flower all of a sudden blossoming that you know. And so, but when you have that truth, you no longer follow this main line. I mean, many of you, if you're like me, when you see much of these things, you just turn the dial on television. You can't even sit there anymore. You can't even take part in it, and a lot of it is not only religious, a lot of it transcends that and goes right into government. You see these politicians up, and they're going to straighten everything out, and the thing continues to get worse and worse and more oppressive against the poor and the underprivileged person who can no longer compete in the system, who can no longer compete in the society. You don't even want to hear it anymore because it's gone beyond the point of anybody repairing. Religion is so far beyond the point of anybody fixing it, it has to topple, and it has to topple by itself. Government is so far out of reach of the average person to compete in the system. Unless you're a professional making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, you find it almost impossible to compete. You can't afford their automobile insurance. You can't afford their health insurance. I mean, and it's astronomical, the charges and surcharges. And so the only ones that can compete, and somebody that's rich can screw up, lose their license, and pay $3,000 and get it back. But somebody that's making $5 or $6 an hour, he screws up, tries to get his license back, forget it, he's destroyed. He cannot get it back because he can't afford all the surcharges. So, I mean, he's priced out of the system. And there's no hope for it. There's no way it can be changed other than by what we look for as this new age of Christ, which will change it. And that's what we're looking at, and we're seeing start to happen around the world, and it has to happen here. I believe that the next big change that you'll see in what will we call the politics, if we want to call that, or government of a country, would probably be Cuba, and then spill up this way, where the overcoming of the bondages that what I want to call lower class people, or the people that are on the bottom kind of the echelon, it just manifests itself. And that's where Jesus was. See? And that's exactly what Jesus tried to deal with. How do I take care of people who can't compete, they can't live in the system? See? And so you go back and say, well, I've got to find out what's true. I've got to be able to understand truth. And truth is understood from within yourself. This Tuesday night when we come to meditation, you'll begin to understand. It's like this morning when we were talking about the fact that religion has been so obnoxious and the guilt and all of this stuff that is poured on people, but we realized in the teaching this morning that's the way it has to be. There has to be something obnoxious that finally gets you so sick that it drives you away from it, finding something that's right. It's like a person, all of a sudden, when they get into meditation, many times they start saying, God, everything is so screwed up. They start blaming it on meditation. Buddha says it's not that. It's finally that you've been living in the cesspool all of your life. Now you can finally smell it. You're alert to it. You're awake. You can smell this crap you've been sitting in all of your life, and you run away from it. In the old days, you're obnoxious. You're just blind to it, and you just live in it and flop around in it, and that's the way it is. See? It's a good way of putting it, a little graphic way of putting it, but basically that's it. All of a sudden, you become awake to the fact that this is not the way you're supposed to be living, and you move out of it. John 8:32 in the Bible, on page 97 in your little Bibles, the book of John. And you go to the book of John and chapter 8, and you go to verse 32, and Jesus is very specific here. Basically, in John 31, he says, if you continue in my word. What does that mean? Read the Bible? No, there was no Bible. It means if you do what I tell you to do. If you continue to meditate, if you continue to practice the single eye, if you continue to cast your energy to the right side, if you continue to seek within yourself for the kingdom of God, he says in John 8:32, then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And that doesn't mean that you come here so you follow me and do what I tell you, because then you're back in bondage again. Free means free. You do what that which in you tells you to do. See? And that's what he's saying. If you do what I tell you. He didn't say if you say I'm Lord, you'll be free. He didn't say if you sign a card for the church. He says if you do what I tell you to do, then that truth will manifest itself in you, and that truth will set you free. It'll set you free from illness. It'll set you free from dependencies on others. It'll set you free from government oppression. It'll set you free from family oppression. It'll set you free from religious oppression. Because you'll be, no matter how bad the storm starts to rage within you, you will have a place where you can run from it. You'll have an ark that you can jump into, and you'll have a mountain that you can run to and stay and hang on at the top of it until this thing is gone. And it will go. But if you're ignorant of the truth, you don't know where to go. You're a slave to the system, because that's all you know. And that's what Buddha said. You're sitting in the cesspool, and you become blind to it, and you think this is the way it's supposed to be. And all of a sudden you wake up, you become enlightened, and you say, my God, this stinks. This isn't the way I'm supposed to live. That's what the prodigal son's all about. He's eating the swine with the pigs in the house. That's what this is talking about. That's what we do. We think we're living, and we're not. And then all of a sudden we become aware of the fact, hey, this is Slopville. I'm not supposed to be living like this. I'm going to go back up to the mountaintop to the Father's house. And remember something, and this is something you've got to keep very close to your mind. The system, organized religion, has a monetary interest in keeping you in bondage. They have what we used to call this thing, when somebody is going to make a profit off of doing something, there's a conflict of interest there, see? Because if you're free, you don't have to follow them anymore. They're going to lose business. It's just like if everybody, doctors are trying to get people healed up to a certain extent. Not too many gets healed, because what am I going to do to pay the rent, pay for the car, and live at the country club? So you got to have sickness. So sickness is a big industry in this country. Tremendous industry. And it doesn't make any difference. Human sickness, tell me, animal sickness. I mean, a cat or a dog can actually cost more than taking care of a person. And you know what the problem with that is? You've got many, many diseased animals running around, not because their owners don't care about them. Their owners can't afford to take them for treatment. In the same way with people. There are people who can't take their children to the doctor because they can't afford to take them for treatment. There should never be a dollar sign attached to religion. There should never be a dollar sign attached to medical care for animals or for people. It's immoral. It can't be that way.
And the AMA won't let people be doctors either.
That's right. And so these are the things. This is why the system has misfired and it does not accommodate people anymore. Only if you are wealthy can you survive in it. Otherwise, you can't. So. And this is where you're in bondage to it. So you then have to plug into something totally different. And all your religion wants you to do is salute the flag, sing God Bless America, stay with them, and continue the barbaric way of living. In fact, keep our church, and we don't want any of those people coming in. That's generally the way it is. The down and out, the person that is hurt, the person that may be gay, the person that may have AIDS, the person that may be God knows what. We don't want them in our thing, see? Because these are social institutions, and they have a monetary interest in you to keep you in the dark. But suddenly what happens is as you start to become enlightened for whatever reason, and generally it's like Jesus taught us this morning, they load so much garbage on you that you run from them and you find what you've got here. And this is what you've got here, not what I've got, what you've got here. You find it, and then you start looking back on all of these tales they told you, and you start seeing how damned obnoxious they really are, and how horrible they really are, how steeped in superstition they really are, and you say to yourself, my God, how did I follow that all of my life? I mean, and then you start looking in the Bible. These people from Florida here this morning said one thing different about you. They say, we've been in this New Age stuff. You show it right in the Bible. We never saw that. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ is the one in the Bible that said about the single eye and the kingdom within and all of this stuff. He's the guy that talked about, there's John the Baptist. He's a reincarnation of a lie. It's in the Bible, see? So, this is what then occurs. And let me show you in the Bible what I'm talking about, what occurs. Go to page 152 in your little Bibles. Best you go to the book of Romans. See, as you come here, and I think each one of you can testify to this. As you come here and you begin to meditate and you just take a shot at this, things start to improve in your life. No hocus pocus, things start to improve. And the reason they start to improve is because you start to think more clearly than you did before. It's not that the troubles don't come, but your reaction to them is more clear, and then it grows and grows and grows in the clarity, and so your life improves. The general state of your life can improve. Here's Romans 12, verse 2. Be not conformed to this world. Religion uses that to say this world is no good. They're not talking about the planet Earth and the whales and the wolves and the dolphins and the bears and the trees and the honeysuckle bushes. They're talking about the lower mind. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, you're not going to get transformed by the renewing of your mind by listening to some screwball on television do what Al was saying, send $25 and he'll talk to God. Keep it in your pocket, you talk to God. So it's got to be the renewal in your mind, and your mind is renewed by meditation. The mental rules the physical. So by binding the mental with false doctrines and fears, we bind the physical with ailments, diseases, and all the rest of it. What emanates from your mind controls your body. So what do we do? How do you stay healthier? How are you able then to deal with your business? How are you able to deal with your families? How are you able to deal with the outside? Take a look at page 25 in the little Bibles and go to Matthew 23. Matthew chapter 23. All right, now go to verse 26. Here's Jesus again talking to the religious, to the clergy, okay? He's talking to the clergy. Thou, you blind Pharisee. In other words, he's saying, you're blind. You can't see. You don't understand. Cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, and that the outside then may be clean also. In other words, first of all, clean up the inside, and then the outside will become clean. And you have been specifically told by born-again people and religious Christianity, don't touch that which is within, because you'll open your minds to demons. Jesus Christ says, bull! Clean first that which is within, and then the outside will be clean of itself. Everything they've taught is totally and diametrically opposed to the teachings of Jesus Christ. If there is anything more antichrist in the world than Christianity, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Everything that he tried to get you to do to be set free, they are against. When you turn your back on religion, then your learning will be based on truth. And how will you do that? Because you'll begin to learn the laws of nature, of the universe. My God, these people don't even know there is such a thing. They're not even allowed to talk about the stars, let alone, they're not even allowed to talk about astronomy. They're not even allowed to talk about any of that stuff. Stay away from that stuff. They know nothing about it. So they know nothing about the laws of nature, of the universe. Religion has problems with science. And the reason they have problems with science is because science starts to tell the truth, and it looks them in the face and says, you're full of baloney. All of these stories you've been telling people. That's why they used to set fire to scientists back in the days of the Dark Ages. They didn't allow them to talk. They put them in prison. See, they didn't want people to be filled up with the truth, because then you're pulled away from all of this bondage that you were in. Do you know, for instance, for over 2,000 years, Hebrew literature has furnished the foundation of education and religion for who? For us. For us. We have been told by teachers and preachers they would translate the literature of the Hebrew people. That has been the foundation of our moral standards. For our lives has been, look, this book, people kiss this book. They put it on pianos and open it up. They put it in their right hand. They put their hand on it. They do it in court. They do it in homes, in churches, in schools, all over the place. But what's the source of it? What about the people who gave it its birth? Shouldn't we do as Jesus Christ, ask some questions, take a look, seek, where does this stuff come from? Who put this together? How come some of the books aren't in here? The Catholics said there are books in the Bible that we don't have in here. Who took them out? And maybe there's the guy that took them out right or wrong. Should they be still in there? The book of Baruch, it's not in here anymore. Who took it out? What is the brother, I forget, huh? No, there was another book that's not in here. There's 2 or 3 books in the Catholic that's not in here. They put it in. Somebody come along and said, those books don't belong in there. They took it out. Now, I want to ask you, are you assured that those books don't belong in your Bible? The Maccabees. Where's the book of Maccabees? Open to the book of Maccabees. It's not in there. Somebody didn't like what it said, and so they and ripped it out and said, this is the Word of God. So the people that don't like the book of Maccabees come on television and say, this is the Word of God. Well, I say, some books missing. They don't belong in there. The other people say, let's read from the book of Maccabees, God's holy word. Well, that's not it. Should be. What? Who's telling the truth? Should it or shouldn't it be? The Jews, they treasured certain of their literature as sacred. And so we took their sacred literature, but left some of that literature, which is just as sacred, and didn't allow it to come in. We chose what we thought should be in here and eliminated what we didn't like. Much of the teachings of Jesus Christ are not in the Bible. Much. If you go into the Gospel of Judas Thomas, the Acts of John, loaded with things that Jesus Christ said. In the Gospel of Thomas, I think there's something like 85 sayings of Jesus Christ that are not in the Bible. They're going to say he didn't say these things? Thomas said he did. I read one this morning. It's saying number 51. And the disciple said to Jesus, tell us, O Master, when will come the resurrection of the dead? When will the end times and the salvation of the world, when will this happen? And Jesus said to them, it's already happened, that you just don't recognize it. Where is it? Where is it in your book? Why did they take it out? So these are things, when I get to look at this, you know where your Bible was put together? Take a look. This is the time of history. Did they say that it was the great era of enlightenment when they put the Bible together? Did they say this was the great era of wisdom and understanding? No! They said this was the Dark Ages when this Bible was put together. Why did they call it the Dark Ages? I mean, couldn't they call it not so nice time? No. Couldn't they call it maybe evening? No, they call it the Dark Ages. You know why it was the Dark Age? I'll tell you why it was the Dark Age. Because they did the same thing then that they did now. They didn't allow anybody to speak. They didn't allow anybody to disagree with them. You weren't allowed to do that. If you want to belong with our group, you will say what we say and believe what we believe. Sign the card that you believe this or else you can't be here. That is the Dark Ages. And you know what they did? They turned around and they pulled the Adolf Hitler routine. They burned all the books that didn't agree with them. Bonfires! And then they sent their hordes of religious henchmen with bumper stickers all over their chariots saying, honk if you love Jesus, down to the library at Alexandria and took all the mystic literature and burned it to the ground. What were they afraid of? What was in there that they were afraid that people might say? That's a fact. That's what they did. They did. In June 325 A.D., Constantine, emperor of Rome, tried to unify the various doctrines that were all over Europe. He said, we got to get this together. It's all screwed up. You got pagans believe this and that Pope, but that was this, that, all this stuff. We got to get this straightened out. He said, first thing we got to do, we got to get a date to celebrate Jesus' birthday. Now, anybody got any ideas? Well, there's a bunch of pagans sitting there. What is he? He's the light of the world. He's the Son of God. No problem. What do you mean, no problem? Let's do it December 25th. How come? We always do it. That's the day the Son is born. Okay, mark that down. December 25th. That's exactly the way it was done. Does that satisfy you, pagans? Yeah, okay, yeah. So you can continue to go on celebrating the sun god on December 25th? Yeah. Okay, all right, we got that. And everybody then starts celebrating the sun god. Except we, nincompoops, think this little kid was born in a snow pile on December the 25th. We don't know. What do we know? See? It was a compromise with people who worshipped the sun and worshipped the moon and worshipped the plants and they compromised with them so they wouldn't get ticked off and walk out, or else they're not going to come to church. So they made it December the 25th and all the rest of it. It's the way it was. In 363 A.D., the first synod of Laodicea enacted 60 what they called canons. These are not, boom, boom canons. These are books. This is what it said. These are all the books of the Old Testament which may be read aloud. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Esther, 1st and 2nd Kings, 3rd and 4th Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd books of Ezra, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, Job, 12 prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Baruch, Lamentations, Maccabees, letters, Ezekiel, and Daniel. The New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts, 7 Catholic epistles, namely 1 by James, 2 by Peter, 3 by John, 1 by Jude, 14 of Paul, 1 Romans, 2 Corinthians, 1 Galatians, 1 Ephesians, 1 Philippians, 1 Colossians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Hebrews, 2 Timothy, 1 Titus, 1 Philemon. That's it. They could be read aloud. Nothing else could be read aloud. Acts of Judas, Thomas, no way. Acts of John, no way. Gospel of Thomas, no way. Book of Enoch, no way. This is all it could. It has been put in stone. And at subsequent conventions, the bishops met and they made some more rules and regulations up. Having this in place, once they had this in place, then they turned to burning the mystical books. And once they got done with burning books, they started burning people. I mean, literally burning people. If you disagreed, and if you said, the kingdom of God was within me, I am one with Christ, the almighty power is within me, and it will echo from this place and touch, they considered you a witch, and they burned you up. There was even a man whose horse was taught in the Dark Ages when he would go around preaching the kingdom of God was within, and he would top the number 7 and the number 3, and they killed him and the horse. The horse was a witch too. This is a fact. This is recorded. The horse's name, the man's name, him and the horse were both witches. They killed him. There was a lady named Hypatia, Hypatia. Very famous in Alexandria, Egypt, Hypatia. She taught the same thing that Jesus did. Kingdom of God within, the right hemisphere of the brain, the chakras, all of this stuff. Cyril, who was at that time the bishop of Alexandria, set out and they busted into her room, something like this, took this young girl, she was in her 20s, dragged her out into the streets and ripped her to pieces. Killed her. Because spirit and bigotry cannot exist side by side. And so she was murdered. And it's a very famous case of the Dark Ages when all of this was going on. And of course, being a lady preacher didn't go over that well at that time either. But that was the beginning of Christianity. That's where it came from. And the fate of Hypatia was simply a warning. No more freedom of thought. Don't you dare think anything other than the way we think. Well, I don't know about you. When I was a little kid, you wouldn't dare say anything that didn't line up with the way the church doctrine was. That was it. Doctrine is doctrine, and you couldn't think otherwise. When Justinian came in, he prohibited all teaching of philosophy. In Athens, all schools of philosophy were closed down. This is your religion. This is your sacred Christianity. burning books, burning people, killing people, and then shutting down all books of science and shutting down all schools of science and philosophy. This is the thing that you're following around and sending $25,000 on television, all these nincompoops. This is where it comes from. It doesn't come from Jesus Christ at all. It comes from the dark ages of Europe, and it was born with a bloody knife and fear. And it controls itself to this day on fear and guilt. Don't you dare disagree. Don't you dare disagree. There was a lady in here this morning who said that her son, who had an illness, or her relative who had an illness, I forget what it was, he was told by this particular denomination that the reason he was sick and he would never get well until he begun to tithe to the church. And she said he hasn't been in church since. He said he'll take his shot and he'll die, but he'll die with his pride and his dignity. Not going to do that. But there was an ominous cloud, of course, that started after Constantine. All this stuff started happening, and an ominous cloud just filtered and covered Europe. And it was the Dark Ages, and I'll tell you what it was. The ominous dark cloud that covered Europe was the birth of your religion, Christianity. Fear, guilt, and sit there and shut up and don't dare disagree. During the period from 500 to 1500, the authority of the church was the rule of life. And if you didn't think so, a guy would come knocking on your door with a red robe on and a proclamation, and you've had it. You've had it. Then, of course, they started saying, wait a minute, there are things in the Bible. See, the church then, the authority got so strong that they started to find things in the Bible that disagreed with their authority, so they outlawed it. They outlawed the Bible. Bible translators were punished. The reading of the Bible became illegal. Illegal. It was illegal to have it. Same guys that put it together then declared, hey, we got a monster on our hands here. Got to stop it. It was taken away from people. But what did Jesus say in Matthew 7:16? By their fruits you shall know them. By their fruits you shall know them. What about the ancient people from strange places long before the people that go back into Chaldea and Babylon and all of those people? Your religion warns you have nothing to do with them. Have nothing to do with their books. Your religion warns you have nothing to do with their culture, have nothing to do with their worship, have nothing to do with their understanding of spiritual things. But your religious heritage never chiseled the story contained on the famous Rosetta Stone. I don't know how many of you know of the Rosetta Stone. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. So old that probably no one can even date where it came from. But the whole miracle of the purpose of life is chiseled into this rock and preserved to this very day. Older than any Bible, older than any speech, older than anything that's ever been, chiseled there by some very intelligent, intellectual, and spiritually motivated child of God. Stay away from it. And I can look out at this audience here and say, stay away from it. Nobody even knows what the heck I'm talking about. You should. And the reason that you don't know what I'm talking about is because your religious leaders have never told you of the precious Rosetta Stone. Read about it sometimes. Look it up in your encyclopedia. Your religion and my religion never hewed the great temples out of solid rock. In India and Egypt, the magnificent temples were never hewed out of solid rock. Thousands and thousands. They never did anything like that. Never accomplished anything like that. They never built the great cities of Nineveh. Never built the great cities of Babylon. Never erected the great pyramids of Egypt. Yet they tell you that, well, have you ever gone into your churches and in your religious conflagrations or whatever they call these things, and in Christianity, have they ever sat down and talked to you about the pyramids? They don't even, you know what they do? Ignore it. It doesn't exist. Did they ever tell you about the Sphinx, the pyramids? No. Don't even look at it. Don't even think about such things like that. See? Let me tell you something. When these cities of Nineveh and Babylon were being completed, when these great temples were being chiseled out of rock in India and Egypt, when those things were being done, Europe was actually, where your religion came from, or my religion came from, when these great miraculous things were happening by Spirit-led people of God, Europe was covered with ice. And these despots that your religious leaders didn't even exist. And yet all of this glory was happening all over the world, and Europe was under the Ice Age. And people were constructing temples, and people were building great things of God, and being led by God, and understanding God, and communing with God, and talking with God. And Europe, where all of this stinking stuff came from, that we pass on as Christianity, was under ice. That's what that's how old I'm talking about. I'm talking about that's how far back people knew of God and knew of the miracles of the mind and the miracles of the oneness of God. They knew it hundreds and thousands of years ago, and these jerks that were giving all of this bondage and all of this horror out to people were under ice. And they wish they'd be under ice right now. Be under ice cubes right now. Because they've been nothing but hurt to people. My God, how far do you have to turn around and look? And look at yourself and look at your own life. And you've followed them around like puppy dogs on a leash. And all of the violence in your own families and hurt in all of your own families. I've seen it in my family. Never miss Mass. Oh, don't ever. You got to get confirmed. You got to do this, got to do that. Inside of my house, my father was alcohol. All hell broke loose. People were fighting with each other, knocking each other over, tables crashing through windows, and all of this stuff. All of my life. As a kid, I was hiding out in the park with my mother. Where was the church? Where was the great leaders? Where was the great philosophers? Where were they? The only people that ever came to our house were cops. I'm telling you the truth. I never saw a religious guy walk through the front door of my house. Never. Yet we were there all the time. Nobody ever came. Wasn't they want to get involved with people like us? You know, mess around with people like them. Stay away from them. See? The Bible, if you read it literally, the Bible tells you that Adam, the first man, appeared 4,000 years ago. Do you know something? There is proof that mighty civilizations flourished and fell and were ancient, and those civilizations were completely unknown to the people who wrote this stuff. The first man, Adam. Sure, not literally, that's true. But in the process of literalizing, 4,000 years ago, that's like yesterday. There were cultures and there were magnificent things hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago things were going on. What are you talking about 4,000 years ago? According to science, it's showing that man first set foot on this planet about 2 million years ago. 2 million! What was his name? Charlie? Fritz? Pluto? Who knows? What about him? How does that talk about him? But these screwballs, you go and they're teaching your kids, they're teaching you, they have religious schools, they're going to teach your kids 4,000 years ago. No wonder everybody's nuts. And then what are you going to do? You're going to send them to college, you're going to sit down with a science professor, and you can say, you know when the world started? Yeah, 4,000 years ago. Come on, son. Yeah, what? Who told you that? It's in the Bible. No, how do I know? The Bible told me so. You wonder. I'll tell you something, there was a guy, this is interesting. Let's compare this. There was a guy named Samuel Pepys. You don't have to write this down. This is not one of the great theological things I'm going to tell you, but a guy named Samuel Pepys. This dates, it's 1665, so they got it in his own handwriting, Albert. 1665. This guy, get this now, he was the Secretary of the Admiralty in England. Dun, 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 dun. I'm going to be nice. We're going to Nottingham. I'm just kidding. Dun, 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 dun. He's the Secretary of the Admiralty in England. He had the big thing, and he came, and all of this kind of, and this is what this letter this guy said, 1665. That's only 300 years ago. He writes, I have great delight, my dear friend, because I have accomplished learning the multiplication tables. He learned how to multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 16, 32. This guy is the Secretary of the Admiralty in London. He learned that and he wrote his friend, I have great delight because I have learned my multiplication tables. He learned arithmetic. He was born again Christian. 2,000 years before that Mr. Pepe was born, there was a guy named Alexander the Great. And he reached Babylon. And he wrote in his diary, "There is no other city that approaches it. It is an engineering marvel." You see what I'm trying to say to you? What I'm trying to say to you is that the glory and the wisdom that is God and Christ is available to each one of you. But do not be guided by the despots and the tyrants and the liars who come out of those dark age period, because their goal is one thing and one thing only: to perpetuate their institutions, the financial aspects of their institutions, and the control over the minds of people. Be free. You have one person, as a Western Orient, you have one person to listen to and obey. His name is Jesus Christ. He is not to be declared, he is to be obeyed. He is not to be talked about, he is to be obeyed. He said, "I did not say to say this, I did not say to say that, I did not say to walk here. I said, do what the heck I told you to do, and everything will be fine." You do what I told you to do, and you'll be saved. What did you tell me to do? I told you, seek first the kingdom of God, which is within you. That's what I told you. But they said you're coming back on a white horse. The kingdom comes not with observation. The kingdom is within you. But I go to the Sunday school to get knowledge. You take away the key to knowledge because you do not enter within yourself. Cast your net to the right side, and you will find. That's all you have to do. You don't have to know any more than that. If you know that much, and you'll get down on your whatever and just obey Jesus Christ, you will be saved, because he will swoop down spiritually and lift you up above all of the horrors of the mind and all of the horrors of Christianity and religion from the Dark Ages. And I tell you, folks, I get letters and I get people really ticked off because I go after and zing these people. So did Ezekiel, so did Isaiah, so did Jeremiah, so did Jonah, so did Jesus. That whole Bible is a book of prophets blasting the established religion and its pomposity, its business of digging in the wallets where they don't belong, and the horrible guilt they force down the throats of people. And if you don't do that, then you cannot stand with the Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ did not get killed because he started a new religion. He got killed because he took the system on by the throat. And he shook it, and he said, "Shame on you." And he said, "You and him are one, and he dwells within you, and he waits with the Father within you to carry you up into the hills of glory. Seek within yourself and rise up into the rapture of the holy heaven." In Jesus Christ's name. We didn't do bad for a small crowd tonight. Memorial Day will memorialize this one. We only have 12 more people to get. We'll have 300 people, and I am sweating. Is it sweating time in here, or is it me? I can't help that. Ooh, what do you mean, ooh? As if you have never seen that before. You've seen that for 30 years, me doing that. Come up here and say it to everybody. Come on up here.
I don't like it when you do that. You just go,
You know what? She loves it.
his little hairs stick out up there, you know. When we got married, he had about 4 hairs.
Now I've got 6. It took me 30 years. I accumulated 2 more. Yeah, we better get off. This is a religious program.
More than that.
Sit down. Get you over here. What? Do you want to come up here? Listen, we've got to go after that little display we've had a good time here. Just keep swinging that, huh? Don't worry about it. Don't be afraid of them. Just keep socking away.
Tell them again how they told you at the eye doctor that so much younger.
Oh, come on. At the eye doctors, they told her that they couldn't believe how old she is, okay? 83.
No. They told me I look 10 years younger, and Billy says, well, how about me?
No,
and they just
do you want
looked
to
at
tell
him and
everybody
said,
how old you are?
Well, yeah, I'm 56.
56.
Yeah, you're 56. 57 in a month.
57 in a month. Will you sit down? You're messing up my whole deal here. We got to go because I got to shut this.
Yes, but he said it's only because you're taking good care of me.
Right, okay, I'm taking good care of you. Sit down. Bad as Benson getting up here now. When you're done.